Okay, welcome everybody to North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children's Partnerships Developments in Safeguarding Masterclass for February 2024. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really pleased to say that we are joined by Andy Kenyon, who's a safeguarding officer with the LADO team, who's going to be running the session today, focused on managing allegations against those who work or volunteer with children. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. The sessions are recorded and go on our YouTube channel, so please pop your microphones on mute and just be aware of your environmental noise in the background. If you do have any questions, please add them into the chat bar and I will pick them up and share them with Andy, and we'll go through any questions at the end. A reminder that we do record all of our masterclasses and training sessions, and they are available on our YouTube channel. So the easiest thing to do is just either scan the QR or click on the link and like and subscribe, and then you'll get a little pop-up that tells you when the new masterclasses have been uploaded or any new training that we add on. The other thing I need from you today is your name and organisation in the chat bar. Now, this is the only way I can gather the attendance for this session, so it just means I can contact NYSCP and you'll be able to access the course certificate and the feedback at the end of it. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Andy, who will run the remainder of the session. Over to you, Andy.
Thanks, Kat. Good afternoon, everybody. I'll probably aim to speak for about 40 to 45 minutes. Appreciate a lot of people may well be on a lunch hour. As Kat said, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat. If there's something specific you want to ask, then please feel free to contact myself or the Duty LADO address afterwards. It's not a problem at all. There's people from lots of different agencies and settings in attendance, so you know, certain bits may be relevant to you or they may not be, but this is going to be an overview. So hopefully it'll give you a better insight as to how LADO process works, what we're here for, and the thresholds that we work to. I'm also going to touch on some learning lessons at the end as well. So first slide, please, Kat. Okay, so for those of you who aren't aware, there is an updated version of Working Together which came out in December. Within that, describes the role of the LADO. One of the biggest misconceptions is that we, as LADOs, investigate allegations. Okay, the LADO does not have an investigatory function. Okay, that is not our role. Our role is to manage, have oversight of individual cases, provision of advice and guidance to employers and organisations. We will liaise with police, other relevant agencies, and we'll monitor cases to make sure they're dealt with as quickly as possible and are consistent with a thorough and fair process. The LADO outcome will be determined at the end of the employer's process. Okay, we're not there to influence the employer's process. Okay, next one, Kat. So what is an allegation? 4 strands. First one being where a person who works with children behaved in a way that has harmed or may have harmed a child. Please don't confuse this with significant harm. Okay, this is harmed, it's a lower threshold. So it's an individual's harmed or may have harmed a child. May have is very wide. As I'll probably say throughout this, if you were in doubt, ring the Duty LADO. So if in doubt, consult. It's such a wide remit that impossible to give lots of different examples. So using your professional training. I think when we're talking about, if you think it's a low level concern, that's fine, deal with it. But if you feel it may be higher, then that's what we're here for, to discuss. Where an individual has committed a criminal offence against or related to a child, behave towards a child or children in a way that indicates he or she may pose a risk of harm to children. Again, that could be one significant incident. It could be a series of incidents that may lead to that assessment or indication. And finally, the fourth category, which has been in place for 2 years approximately now, behaved or may have behaved in a way that indicates it may not be suitable to work with children. And I'll touch on that in the next slide. Okay, Kat. So obviously you could have an allegation in direct relation to the work that the individual is employed within, working with children. The allegation could be in relation to the subject's own child. Could be that the individual whose children has their own children on a child protection plan. If that's the case, the professionals have determined that the individual's own children are at risk of significant harm, and therefore meets the threshold for a referral to ourselves. Because if their own children are at risk of significant harm, then we need to consider whether the children that they are working with. It doesn't automatically disbar them, but it needs to be referred for that to be considered. Also, high level, the child in need, it could be, it's going to be determined on the sort of risk that's of concern within that, but certainly the high level child in need, then it should be referred to us as well. Also, allegations in relation to other work, volunteering with children. A lot of certainly teachers may well be involved in other roles, sports, coach, scouts and guiding. If there is an allegation in relation to that individual, we will consider all roles that that individual is working in. I'm currently managing a case where an individual is a teacher, but we also have 4 other agencies involved, and each agency has to consider the risk of that individual. Non-recent allegations, so that's where incidents reported that occurred over 1 year before it was disclosed and or reported. So we need to consider their current role against the information, that's the allegation that's been made, and we would need to inform the current employer. More than likely that has come to us via the police, and we work closely with the non-recent team in relation to that. And also information not on the DBS and then shared post-employment. The DBS is a piece of paper that says that you've got no information that makes you a risk of harm to children. It doesn't say that you're safe to work with children. It's just saying that there's no information to share. When we get allegations, we will make a referral to the VAT, which is the Police Vulnerable Assessment Team, and we'll ask for checks on the individual involved. We then may receive information that the police hold that didn't meet for the police to declare to the DBS, but information that is shared to us. So if you attend allegations meeting as an employer and suddenly hear information and you think, God, that wasn't shared with me, well, that is the potential that there is other information held by the police that is relevant to us, but it does not meet the threshold for disclosure on DBS. And we will need to manage that at that point. Okay, thanks, Kat. Okay, so following the referral being made to the LADO, where it's determined a child could have suffered or be at risk of suffering significant harm, in that case, a strategy meeting led by Children's Social Care should be convened. Obviously, if police are involved, well, police would be attending the strategy meeting anyway. In most cases where that is a strategy meeting takes place, we will endeavour to hold an allegations meeting straight after the strategy meeting. One, because most professionals are there, and secondly, because then we've assessed the children who are involved in the allegation, considered their needs, and we'll hold the allegations meeting after to consider the subject of the allegation. But we then don't need to repeat all the information we've discussed about the children. Where there's no need to consider the children within the meeting, then we may well hold a meeting with the police and employer. If there's a criminal offence, it's more than likely the police will lead with their investigation, and we will then wait for the outcome of that police investigation. So, a person may have behaved towards a child in a way that indicates they may pose a risk of harm to children. This again, if there's a police investigation, we will look to convene an allegations meeting and with the employer and share the information. It may well be then that the employer will need to consider their own procedures on the capability or disciplinary procedures. I know there's a few small settings here. What I would always advise is, you may think this doesn't happen to you, and then suddenly out of the blue, a LADO referral is, comes in, and we may well be asking you, have you got HR support? Where can you seek legal advice? Do you, I would go back and review, do you have that information or process in place? Do you have someone you can go to? Where the allegation is demonstrably false, then we'll advise on the appropriate action at that point. Okay, thanks, Kat. Okay, for those of you who haven't been involved in an allegations meeting, it's not too different to strategy meeting. It's about information sharing. We'll look at the details of the allegation that's been discussed, the actions that have already taken place prior to the meeting, and we'll look at the child or children involved in the allegation. As I say, if this meeting is following on from a strategy, we won't dwell on that because the needs of the child will have already been considered. We'll look at the picture of the person who's subject to the allegation. So if you're an employer and you're attending the meeting and it's one of your staff, then we will be asking about their references, whether or not there's been previous concerns or allegations in relation to the individual, current DBS, when was the last clearance. We may need to consider this, depending on the nature of the allegation, we may need to consider the subject's own children. Do we need to make referrals on them? Are they safe? If it's at the more serious end of the scale, that may have already been addressed through police action. There may be bail conditions in place. We need to consider that. And as I said, other work with children. So we'll be considering any other roles working with children. We'll then discuss the next steps. If it's going to be a police-led investigation, if there's no police action, it's over to the employer. What actions are they going to follow? and we'll try and consider timescales. And I'm going to say try because the police investigations going to depend on if it's forensic, of a forensic nature, indecent images, then it could we could be talking several months. So we need to put steps in place to manage that. We need to manage the expectations of the employer, the individuals involved. If it's police, they're going to take the priority, and we will ask whether or not it's the employer can run an investigation alongside the police investigation. It may not. It's going to depend whether that impacts on the police investigation. So we would be led by the police within that. We'll discuss how information can be shared and keep each party updated. We'll then consider the welfare for the subject of the allegation, ensure that there's arrangements in place. Again, for the larger organisations, that will be probably fairly normal standard practice, but for smaller organisations, again, you may need to be taking HR advice and looking what support you can put in place. We'll then agree actions and a review date. At the final meeting, we will consider the LADO outcome and the lessons learned. Potentially that could be several months. Unfortunately, I've got cases that are over 2 years old in certain circumstances. It's more rare, but it does happen. We'll also look at lessons learned if relevant. Again, for more serious cases, there can certainly be learning, and I'll come on to some learning at the end of this. Okay, thanks. So suspension should be considered. So in most cases, it's last resort. It may be such a significant offence that's being considered that it's a fairly simple decision. However, whether we will need to consider whether there's cause to suspect a child or other children at the workplace are at risk of significant harm, or the allegation is so serious there may be grounds for dismissal. And it's also to be considered where it's necessary to allow any investigation to proceed unimpeded. This is a discussion we will have. If there is an allegations meeting, it'll be considered there, or it may well be considered immediately once we receive the allegation. The final decision is that of the employer. We will provide guidance, views, but the final decision is that of the employer. We'll look at alternative duties. Can the individual potentially work from home for a few days? Again, it's always going to depend on the nature of the allegation. Is it something potentially that may be sorted in a couple of days? You don't want to suspend, but you can place them elsewhere. Other alternative duties, or can they work supervised, still in their role? Always going to depend on the nature of the allegation, but we'll explore those and discuss them. Okay, thanks. So at the end of the process, if it's a police investigation, if the individual's charged, we're going to need to wait till the outcome of the court case. So again, we're talking, I'll answer that at the end, Tim. We're going to wait till the end of the court case. Now, we're still waiting for that. Potentially, there are actions that you will need as an employer to take advice from HR. You know, is the individual able to fulfill their contract? Can you look under some other substantial reason? That is not my area of expertise. So HR will be important to you within that. If the police take no further action, please don't think that's the end of it. The police investigation is to prove beyond all reasonable doubt. Now, it may be that they're at the end of their investigation, they don't feel that they can take any further action, and they'll close it as no further action. They may then refer it to the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, for them to review, to consider whether there are any charges. At the end of the CPS process, they may advise no further action or charges. But at the end of that, if it is no further action, that is not the end of the process. That is the criminal threshold from the LADO process and disciplinary process. We're looking at on the balance of probabilities. It's a much lower threshold. So 50-50, has it happened? So if the police take no further action, it's then on to the employer to take any disciplinary action if necessary. This will be discussed along the way as time goes on. So at the end of that process, and I've split these slides up now, so substantiated, there is sufficient evidence to prove the allegation. So this is at the end of the, well, obviously if they've been convicted at court or they've been found through the disciplinary process, that there is sufficient evidence to prove the allegation. The allegation will be substantiated. That outcome is discussed between parties. So if the allegation is substantiated, but the subject is not dismissed, then the allegation will be referred to in a future reference by the employer for that individual. It does not mean the subject cannot work with children in the future, but the allegation will be referred to. Okay, there are people in probably working for all the people who are here today, not in their settings, but within their agencies that there are individuals with substantiated allegations. If they're not dismissed, then, as I say, it will be referred to in the future reference, but you will get written guidance from us in relation to that. Now, if the subject is dismissed as a result of the substantiated allegation or removed from regulated activity, the employer will be informed to submit a referral to DBS and also any relevant regulatory body. So with the teachers, the Teaching Regulation Agency, health, maybe GMC. If those referrals are made, the processes after that by the DBS or regulatory bodies are separate processes. I try and say some people are reluctant to make referrals at the end of the process because they say, I can't say whether they should be barred from working with children. That is not what we're asking. Your duty is to submit a referral at the end of the process for their consideration. It's not your consideration. Your duty is to submit a referral. So I hope that is clear. Next one. Thank you. Okay, for any member of staff, or sorry, not necessarily staff, for any person subject to an allegation, the substantiated allegation is the worst outcome. But what I do say to people, this is where the LADO process to some extent protects people. And by that, I mean, the next 4 outcomes won't be referred to in any future reference. It draws a line under the process and gives clear guidance to employers that they don't need to refer to this in a future reference. Also does mean that if the allegation is brought up in the following year or 2-3 years ahead, we can look back, we keep records, and we can say this has already been looked at. It doesn't need to be re-investigated. So if we find, and I'm saying we, this is a decision made between ourselves, you as the employer, and any other agencies involved. If we find that the allegation is unsubstantiated, insufficient evidence to prove or disprove the allegation, unfounded, there's no evidence or proper basis supporting the allegation, it's false, then, as I say, that you will get written guidance that does not need to be referred to in any future reference. If it is considered malicious from a teacher's perspective, and it's just purely teachers, it can be removed from their record completely. So what it does hopefully give people confidence in the system, in that it doesn't leave a black mark hanging over them for the future. So in a nutshell, that is LADO process. I hope that provides some understanding of it. I'm going to move on to lessons learned, and these are some issues that we feel as LADOs people should be aware of. First one, when there's an ongoing police investigation, the organisation may well be contacted to share information. This should be done without delay. We've had a couple of cases where employers have not shared information with the police, hiding behind GDPR, data protection, human rights. What we'd like to emphasise, these are not barriers to information sharing, but actually do provide a framework to ensure information is shared about individuals appropriately. If you do have doubts about sharing, then please do seek advice, but I would say that should be done quickly. I would struggle to find cases where information shouldn't be shared with the police. But unfortunately, we have had a couple of employers who've refused, and the police have had to go to the lengths of obtaining a warrant from the employer to gain the information, and that is not what safeguarding is about. So please don't share. Please don't hide behind these. You know, if you are really not sure, please do seek advice, but don't assume it's automatic not to share information. As I've said, the role of the LADO is not to investigate. However, where appropriate, we will challenge either throughout an investigation regarding an employer's process or an outcome if we feel it's not appropriate. It's quite rare, but certainly I've spent the last couple of months with a company where they've given a verbal warning, and in essence we believe it's you know, up towards the level of gross misconduct. I'm trying to give you an idea of the discrepancy that we feel, and we have challenged that. At the end of the day, it is the employer's final decision, but our job is to challenge, and in the end, through talking and discussing why the company have come to our sort of viewpoint. Safer recruitment. You know, are you satisfied that your staff who are conducting safe recruitment, are they trained, and is your school process thorough and robust? Certainly just dealing with a case now where, having looked at the application form of the individual, there were several glaring errors that you know, are challenged immediately, and having reviewed it, you know, the staff that school are now taking appropriate action. But again, you know, you need to be satisfied that your recruitment is correct and the structure is right. We are running some safer recruitment courses, little cell here, but we are running some safer recruitment training starting in April. For those of you who knew Susan Crawford, unfortunately she has retired at Christmas, and she was the safer recruitment guru for many people. So there's 3 or 4 of us who have been trained up, and as I say, we're starting in April with some new sessions. Okay, thanks, Kat. Okay, just a couple of slides, 3 slides here in relation to child M. This was a serious case review. It's published and as a learning material on the Safeguarding website. It talks about the importance of governing bodies, but I just want to go through a few points of learning from this. It's something that I was involved with. But this case highlights the importance of governing bodies of schools seeking and following appropriate advice. But there are also other learning lessons, not just related to the governing body. It's taken, I've really shortened this, but I'm just trying to set the picture as best I can. So in this case, Child M's father raised concerns about his son, who was now in secondary school, with concerns about him having regular contact with the head teacher from his primary school at the head teacher's home. The father was very clear he wanted this to stop. Child M's parents were separated and his mother regarded the head teacher as a friend and did not share the concerns, and so was happy for the contact to continue. There was an investigation by the governors who sought advice from HR, and the outcome was that a formal management advice letter should be sent to the head teacher. So, Kat. The head teacher initially accepted this recommendation, but several months later appealed the decision. The governors held an appeal panel which did not comply with guidance, and within this appeal panel they revoked the previous management advice. Importantly, they did not inform either the LADO nor the senior HR advisor who had given the original advice of their decision. Several years later, Child M made allegations sexual abuse against the head teacher. From the initial complaint by father, there were 3 concerns raised to LADO, and on each occasion there was deemed no role for LADO. The appropriate information and advice was given, and that it did not meet the threshold. What's important here is that following the 3rd occasion of it being raised to LADO, appropriate advice given, which we knew included the letter from the governors. There was no further information shared with the LADO until the disclosure by the child. That head teacher was arrested, subsequently charged with child sexual abuse, and was sentenced to a significant period of imprisonment. Learning points from this, apart from the governors ensuring that any changes in decisions are made, it's important for everybody to work with parents, and especially when the parents are separated, even more so when there's conflict between parents, which there was in this case, and ensuring that they both have the opportunity to have an equal voice within this. It's one of the biggest issues within this case was the conflict between parents. Next one, Kat. Okay. This is the final slide for lessons learned, but professional curiosity and challenge. All persons should be wary that behaviours can be conducted openly in front of staff, pupils and parents, and suspicious, unacceptable behaviour should be challenged appropriately or concerns raised. The learning from here is, I think most people think this is always going to be in secret or hidden away, or done where people can't see what is happening. From this case, Child M, you had a head teacher who people knew let pupils come to his house. A head teacher who gave driving lessons to ex-pupils on the school playground, who let pupils come in, ex-pupils come into school, did work on the school. I'm talking about painting, work on the roof. This was done in open with everybody. And what we've had since it came to our attention and he was charged and convicted is everybody saying, oh yeah, well, we all knew this was happening. But as I said to you, from our final involvement with the parental complaint, there was over 2 or 3 years, there was no notification to any authority regarding this. You know, we had a headmaster in essence who groomed the school and the community to some extent. So it's one of the things that we want people to discuss in meetings, and you know, regular safeguarding meetings with your staff. Professional curiosity and challenge. Why did you do that? Or, you know, why are you doing that? If you can't confront them directly, raising it to the appropriate levels. Low level concerns individually may not meet the threshold for LADO, but these should be managed within appropriate internal procedures. You know, if you have CPOMs as a school, you know, are you auditing that to consider whether the same person is having some low level concerns raised against them? Certainly in smaller settings, are you aware of 2 or 3 low level concerns? Is there a pattern of behaviour that might indicate the person is unsuitable to work with children? And do you need to discuss that with the LADO? Again, lots of examples that I could give. You know, if there is one allegation that reaches or may reach our threshold, you should be consulting with us. You know, if it's 2 or 3, I can't say for certain it's 2 or 3. It might be 3, 4, quite low, very low level. But it's quite difficult to give specific examples. Again, the individual I mentioned who was really should have failed the safer recruiting, that individual, the 4 or 5 agencies involved all had low level concerns. Out of those agencies, there was one agency that should have referred to LADO. The others are feeding in to the LADO process that we had low level concerns, and quite rightly, when you look at them individually, they didn't reach the LADO threshold, and I understand why, but there was one that really did have some concerns that should have been shared and referred to LADO. And finally, whistleblowing. You need to ensure all staff have the confidence to raise concerns regarding any member of the school staff, including the leadership team. You've heard me talk about Child M, and that was the headmaster, you know, who was in charge of the school. Where do people go if it is the person in charge? people and staff should, staff should be clear about where they need to go to, chair of governors, or is there somebody else? And these should be discussed regularly, in my opinion, or our opinion as LADOs, with staff, so that they're confident that they know where to go. What we don't want is concerns being blocked by members of SLT. So the lessons that main lessons that we wanted to highlight and bring to your attention, and this is the very last slide, but really, so if you haven't referred to LADO before, the way we work is that one of us, between the three of us, is duty each day, Monday to Friday, 8:30 till 5. So if you need to contact us, the duty LADO number there, 01609 533 080, or lado@northyorks.gov.uk. If you have an allegation, please submit a LADO referral form that can be found on the North Yorkshire Safeguarding Children Partnership site under forms for professionals. That should be done without delay. If it's what you consider you're really not sure, but as I say, if in doubt, consult, then ring and you'll be put through to duty LADO. It could be that you're asked to submit a referral by our admin, but it's best to do that. As I say, if you're not sure, the way it works is whoever's duty LADO is, we'll pick it up and we'll run with it for the first sort of day. If it's one that's going to be an ongoing investigation, we'll then allocate it to the colleague whose area it is. So my colleague Julie Kay's Eastern area, I'm Central and Northern, and Marie is Western area. As I said, Susan's retired, so we are waiting for the replacement LADO manager, who hopefully should be advertised within the next week or so. So I hope people have found that informative. As I said, there's people I know within the delegates list that some have had contact with us, but there's several there that I'm not aware of and may not have had contact. So I hope it gives you some confidence of when to contact us and how to contact us and the process that takes place. We're there to guide you and assist you. I suppose the one thing we don't want is a full investigation and then you're ringing us and saying, "Oh, I've done all of this investigation. Do you think it meets your threshold?" It should be, when you're notified of an allegation, that's when you should be checking us. I'll just go to, I know there's been a couple of questions. Yes, that question is that Lisa? Yes, Lisa. Yeah, so it's not where the subject of the allegation lives. It's where the incident took place. Where it's where they work. So if they live out of North Yorkshire, it doesn't matter. If they work within North Yorkshire, it's where the subject works. And Tim, I think you asked a question. Sorry, Kat, can you see Tim's question?
No, it's fine. So the question, Andy, from Tim was, for a maintained school, is the employer defined as the school or North Yorkshire Council? It's
a school. Contracted with the school. It's a school. But if it's maintained, they've got the support of HR, who will provide that guidance.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, please just pop them in the chat and we will stick around at the end. There's just a couple of final slides from the business unit, just in terms of some updates A final reminder that you can access all our procedures and practice guidance and 1-minute guides on the website. I've popped a QR code on there just so you can scan at your convenience, and you will have seen as Andy was chatting, I put a few links in the chat bar. So obviously we've got the 7-point briefing in relation to Child M that you can share and promote with your teams in terms of learning. And I also put some of the practice guidance on there in relation to professional curiosity and whistleblowing. So just in relation to some upcoming masterclasses, obviously we've just had the February one. In March on the 20th, you've got me. Now I will be running the masterclass to launch our multi-agency child exploitation strategy that we are currently reviewing. Now we are launching this to coincide with the 18th of March, which is a National Child Exploitation Awareness Day. But all I would ask is just keep your eyes peeled on the website. We will be doing some promotion over the next week or two, perhaps just the first day after half term, because I will be running a programme of learning right through that week. So we're going to be running a series of lunchtime masterclasses and a couple of after school sessions as well. And we've got partners right across our kind of Maze partnership delivering sessions on lots of different elements of child exploitation and support services that are available. So keep your eyes peeled for those, and please do join us if you can. The other thing just to make you aware of from a Maze point of view, some of you may have attended last year, but we will be holding our face-to-face development sessions again at the end of June and July. So as part of that programme of learning, I'll be releasing the booking dates for those and venues. Another masterclass coming up in April will be the launch of a new partnership campaign, which is called #AskMe, with the sort of tagline, have the conversation. Now, this is in relation to some learning that has come out of the partnership in relation to sudden infant deaths, in relation to safe sleep practices. And what we're trying to do is kind of launch a campaign in relation to having all partners taking the opportunity to have those kind of conversations with new and expectant parents around safe sleep practices, and really kind of making that an informal and non-judgmental conversation based around the challenges of safe sleeping. So we'll be launching a campaign, and we will be having a collation of resources all available on the website as part of that campaign. On the 1st of May, we will have North Yorkshire Police giving us a counter-terrorism update. And then on the 5th of June, to coincide with Volunteers Week, we will welcome our volunteer community and social enterprise sector partners, who again will be launching some campaign materials all around the delivery of those key safeguarding messages for our VCSE partners. That session won't just be open to VCSE partners, it'll be open to anyone, and you'll obviously be able to access those campaign materials to promote as well. We will record today's session, and it will be available on the YouTube channel, and you can click on the link on the slide, and that will take you to the link when it will put it up later this afternoon. Final slide from me, you've got all of our links there for our website, which is our hub, which has got everything that you could need. Anything that's missing off there, please get in contact and we will endeavour to fill the gap. But all of our social media platforms as well, we do post regularly, and we will ask that if partners are using social media, that they like and share and get the messages out as far and wide as possible. I've popped a QR code on there as well for our e-bulletin. So for those of you who don't already sign up, you would get that roughly the first day or two of the month. And we just share with partners all of our safeguarding updates. So if we are putting new learning on the website or new resources, we will pop those on there. So it's a really useful way for you guys to keep in touch. Other than that, that will be the end of our session for today. Andy and I will stick around for a minute or two just to see if there's any extra questions, but thank you so much for joining us for today's masterclass. We hope you found it very useful.